I will turn it over to Flint.
Let us, if you will, we'll offer the chant that comes at the beginning of the Dharma talks, which we've done each time. And it's our final day here on the Sunday. Let's repeat it 3 times, which would be a classical way to do it, as we've done the other chants. If you have it in front of you, take a moment to bring it forward. If not, you can listen. And one of the beautiful things about repetition is that as you hear it, you can begin to learn it like a song. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. So welcome back to our final time of practice in this particular way. I've heard from many of you that the week has been quite rich and continues to be so, hopefully through today. It is very interesting to engage this retreat in this form, an integrated intensive for one, which we have at Appamada quite a bit, not online, but where people come to the Zendo in the morning, sit, maybe have practice discussion with a teacher, leave, go to their work. There's some sort of inspirational piece that comes to them by email during the day, then they return in the evening for the Dharma talk, more sitting and meetings with a teacher. And do this day after day, where your regular life is bracketed by practice. And here we are doing it in a way where it's even more integrated in a way, because it's distributed everywhere among all of you, so many wonderful people in so many places. I will also invite Suzanne to offer some comments too here as we complete the morning and complete the the retreat. But I'd like to finish up with some of the teachings which we have begun. And I think sometimes it's useful to have a little review that kind of stitches things together for a moment. We entered on Thursday evening by enacting a ceremony of entry and a celebration of one student's practice, but which is a representation of all practice. Kathy entering as head student. So we entered our retreat with a ceremony of entry, a celebration of practice, and realizing as we did that the ceremony itself is the embodiment of yes, of offering ourselves in a way that Kim just spoke about, Dana Paramita, the practice of generosity, and all of the practices of the paramitas, the practices of perfection of a bodhisattva. So we entered with this embodiment of yes, as Kathy was responding to the invitations, full of uncertainty, with the reality of imperfection, which is the way that we all enter and that we can all follow. The theme, welcome everything and push away nothing, is of course implied and woven into that entry. It's been echoed in the teachings about interdependence of everything um, and everything being one, cooperative, as Buddhadasa said it in the quote in the letter that I read you from Robert Aiken. The entire universe is a cooperative. Pardon me. We name the gap between suffering and freedom through these perspectives. This isn't it, versus life as it is. This isn't it, a rejection of life. Life as it is, a turning toward. And the strategies that we employ in response to these. I'd like to solve my life and all the problems and get it right, or I vow to live our shared life. We place compassion at the center of things, not as a skill we might develop or a commodity we might deliver, but as a commitment. And over time, that commitment opens a capacity to liberate the freedom and intimacy inherent in each moment and in each relationship. In doing so, we invite what is often pushed away, which is the willingness to fail and to fall and to see what happens when we do together. Each question and answer during the Dharma talks and each inquiry yesterday, more extended, these meetings revealed the centrality of all of these truths and these teachings better than any Dharma talk could, through the lives of the beautiful people who showed up, offering themselves wholeheartedly. And with this, we enter the koan of our lives, the questions, the uncertainty, the stories that keep tumbling and turning and twisting. And our job is to navigate and continue to choose the curriculum, continue to enter in each moment. So these are the koans of our life and eventually our death. So I'd like to complete this sequence, given our theme, and speak about the middle way. There are two quotations which many of you have heard many times, which I'll repeat, that are beautiful, brief expressions of the two truths. Sometimes we call it the relative and the absolute, the middle way. Suzuki Roshi, is famous one you've heard, we live constantly off balance against a background of perfect balance. We live constantly off balance in this relative tilty world of uncertainty and impermanence against a background of perfect balance. The universe is a contingent flow of ongoing experience that doesn't have a problem. It's actually going just right. Another quotation you've heard many times, which speaks to the same thing, is the sort of almost humorous one that he's famous for, when he said to his students, you know, you're perfect just like you are, and you could use a little improvement. Speaking to the innate, essential perfection of each person's expression of the one nature, Buddha nature, not their Buddha nature, but Buddha nature. And we also have to practice, and we have to notice how we're living our life, and we have to follow precepts in the background of knowing that that doesn't enhance or destroy our nature, but it can come forward and be realized and lived and expressed. So I'd like to speak about these things that Suzuki Roshi was pointing to, these two truths, this always this balance, not as so much Buddhist philosophy or classical Dharma, but how it manifests in our integrated intensive. When we're practicing Prajnaparamita, another of the paramitas, the deepest wisdom of the Buddha, while being at home and going about our daily life as if we were in a temple, because that's actually where you are, the temple of your life. There's excuse me, it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, so there's a beautiful small teaching poem by Hakuin Zenji, one of Rinzai ancestors, and this was reportedly written in the mid 18th century, 1748. And this is actually the invitation of the integrated intensive and or practice in general, but I'm focusing it in that way right now. He wrote, "Make your upper garments into a monk's robe. Make your chair your sitting cushion. Make the mountains, rivers, and great earth your sitting platform. Make the whole universe your own personal meditation cave. This is the true practice of the sages of the past and of today." So what is the true practice of the sages of the past and of today? What is your practice? Well, to make the whole universe your meditation cave, your special place of practice. Make everything around you in the natural world, the mountains, rivers, and great earth, your sitting platform. That's your basis, nature. Make your chair in your ordinary living room or in your kitchen, drinking your morning coffee, your sitting cushion, and your upper garments, whether you're sitting in your pajamas or in a more formal way, make your upper garments into a monk's robe. How do we make these things sacred or transformational? Well, it's through our willingness. First, our willingness. Are you willing? Then to choose a path, a direction, a teaching, teachers, friends, a sangha, through our forms, which hold those things, and through perseverance, through continued practice. A willingness, choosing, engaging forms, and persevering. There's an interesting little a story from Ryotaku Monastery in Japan. Nakagawa Soen Roshi, who was one of the great kind of interesting and kind of wild teachers of the 20th century. And he was telling a story which is attributed to a great 19th century swordsman, Yamaoka Teishu. And this swordsman said, "Zen is like soap. First you wash with it, then you wash off the soap." Once again, speaking to these two sides, you plunge in through your willingness, you make choices, you engage the forms fully, you persevere, but you don't have to call it, you don't have to cling to Zen. It's not about clinging. So I'm going to talk about forms in a way that is strong. But please, this is the warning. This is the swordman saying, please don't take this as a fundamental approach, or that this is what you should cling to in any way. It's a vehicle for transformation that you take and utilize, so that we can have a wide enough and deep enough container to welcome everything and to not push away life. And this is what the middle way is. The middle way is not some small, narrow stripe down the middle of the road in which everything is precariously balanced. It is a broad and beneficent field, which we chant in the robe chant, which both receives and expresses reality. It holds everything, but you sit and you stand in the middle. And this is the true welcoming of everything and the true pushing away of nothing. Now, when we open through practice to the absolute, when we sit and express our nature as Buddhas, when we open to this vast, beneficent field, the contingent flow of every moment's reality, the essential, the boundless, we sit in the midst of the contingent and the relative, and the everyday world comes along, doesn't it? You've noticed, it doesn't go away. And the everyday world is also implied as the content and the outpouring, almost ornamentation, the outflow of emptiness. Emptiness flows out and expresses itself in form. What are forms? The expression of emptiness or boundlessness. When you enter the everyday world, the essential is implied as the backdrop. That's the perfect background, the backdrop or the space in which the relative is being played out. What may appear to be concealed on each side is implied. What's concealed when you're in the vast space of samadhi is your everydayness. What's concealed when you're bound up in the everyday busyness is the boundless nature which supports and holds it all. We see this in the yin-yang symbol. We see that one creates the other, and that little dot of light in the dark, and the little dot of dark in the light says, and the other is implied. Each contains the other. We're never outside of reality. But humans, since we have this dualistic mind, find ourselves taking positions. And practice helps us step beyond the everyday positions in a way to hold it all, knowing that we'll always be taking these positions. When we walk down into the everyday from the lofty perspective of the absolute, let's say you have this shift, we turn to face the challenges and the difficulties without seeking solace in emptiness when we inevitably run into the things we dislike or fear. When you have those moments of a boundless sort of relief or freedom or extinguishing of conditioning for a moment, the small self wants to grab it, and we'd like to take solace in it in a way that is a way of sometimes running away. But remember, we welcome everything, push away nothing. So as I'm talking about these two sides, you can see that there's also, it calls for this hazy distinction, which we talk about quite a bit, partly because I guess I'm the kind of teacher I am with the kind of background I have. The hazy distinction between psychotherapy and transformational spiritual practices. So are we really called to slog through the conditioning and history we carry in our bodies so we can be free of these burdens, or are we able to see that the burdens and the experiences which have shaped us are the very cause and foundations of our awakening? Well, once again, the middle way, we're holding these two sides. Enlightenment, the way in which things open and light is shown in areas that were previously obscure to us, and we wake up to certain things. And endarkenment, the plunging into the everyday, embodied, messy nature of what it means to be human, the relative and the absolute, the mud and the lotus. This is the fullness of welcoming everything and pushing away nothing. Now, there are times in which, as I'm working with students, I have sometimes heard expressed in certain ways, I mean, to make it truncated a bit here and a little bit simplistic, but some version of, well, it's all empty, so why be so concerned? If you understand emptiness as empty of independent existence, it's all free, you want to step into the background and rest there. This is the classical spiritual bypass, and can lead to then dissociation, repression, suppression of a turning away. It's a spiritual version of turning away rather than welcoming. A turning away from what needs your attention in the everyday life. Because things are empty of an independent existence. That's why I can actually turn toward them, welcoming without resorting to pushing away. Because things are empty, I can turn towards them, knowing that they're not as substantial as I would often think. There are 4 recommendations or invitations. I believe it came from the Tibetan teacher Patrul Rinpoche, where he said, don't invite the future. Don't prolong the past. Don't fear appearances, and don't disturb your innate wakefulness. Don't invite the future. He's speaking to resting in the present, not following our anxiety into the future. Don't prolong the past. Rest in the present. Don't pull all of your conditioning with you as a burden and a concern. Don't fear appearances. Even in the present moment, notice everything is impermanent, everything is ephemeral. Just this too shall pass. There are ways to not get quite so caught. Certainly pay attention, certainly know what's needed, but not quite so caught in the way things appear. And finally, don't disturb your innate wakefulness. Your Buddha nature is the ground of your being, your true nature. You can't create it, you can't destroy it. Just don't disturb it. Wake up to it. Don't invite the future. Be here now. Don't prolong the past. Be here now. Don't fear appearances. Rest here now. Don't disturb your innate wakefulness. It's already here now. So this is the warning about not getting lost in emptiness. Sometimes it's called Zen sickness, and it needs to be washed off. Another response I sometimes get is when someone is identified very closely with their history and with the results of that history, with pain and trauma, all of which I understand and have spent my entire professional life working with. It's not so much what's said, it's where it's coming from. When I hear someone say some version of, what do you mean I should let go of my pain? I had terrible experiences. It was traumatic in my family, or saying I shouldn't feel these things. Once again, it's a little bit of an extreme way I'm saying it, but there's some version, and you can hear behind it, even when I'm just enacting this, where this is coming from. It's not just what's being said. And this can be a very slippery kind of victimhood in the service of practice, which embeds a person in the relative positions they occupy in their internal and relational dramas. And of course, these things need attention. We do have to practice with them. But we do not need to continue to practice them. And this is part of the key of a willingness and a choice, a shift in direction and practice and perseverance. Proving that it was bad only proves that it was bad over and over again. Being understood and met, which is often what was initially missing when bad things inevitably did happen to us, being understood and met allows the bad to transform into grief and relief. And practice, along with good, sometimes psychological help, can assist that shift. Instead of just practicing your conditioning, we can practice with our conditioning. And so that what was bad or difficult is, instead of reinforced, can be transformed into grief and then relief. And the paramitas, which Kim spoke about earlier, really map out the qualities which are useful. And generosity being the first, we offer ourselves to ourselves. We offer ourselves to the situation. We can offer ourselves to someone who needs our help. That openness of possibility instead of the contraction helps us begin to have a little breathing room. Our ethical behavior, the precepts, give us guidelines about not taking what's not given, not stealing, not lying, not doing things that are unwholesome, keeps us focused as we open. The paramita of patience allows the space as we welcome and not push things away. The fourth, vitality, gives us some energy to remain upright in the perseverance piece. all based in the last two, which are meditation and wisdom, our continued practice and the clarity and wisdom that comes from that. Of course, all of us, all children should be protected and nurtured as they grow up, but it doesn't always go that way. And as adults, we still need these same qualities of kindness and care. But there is a difference. As adults, we have to be responsible to ourselves and for ourselves in a very different way than we couldn't be when we were children. We're no longer truly dependent on others. We rely on others. We're interdependent, but we aren't dependent in the same way a child is. So we have to make a firm commitment. Some version of, I will take care of myself. I will be self-responsible. And I will be responsible for my life, which includes my connection with all beings, not just separate. I will be responsible for my life and myself, no matter what happens. Not, I'll take care of myself and I'll be upright and I'll practice well as long as there's no pandemic, as long as I don't get a divorce, as long as my child doesn't die, as long as I make the list of whatever horrible things. And remember the horizons for readiness. Oh, I'm ready for this, but not that. Or relevance, this matters, but not that. Or responsibility. This is the commitment that says, as I integrate my practice in my life, if I make the choice to turn toward everything and push nothing away, if I persevere in practice, I'm making the decision. I will take care of myself and be responsible for my life no matter what, which means ongoing practice, attending to my relationships, all the things that we focus on. And an intensive retreat is challenging and can sometimes frustrate our desire to be cared for and protected. When we're in an ordinary retreat, in let's say a residential retreat, where we're in a space of silence, there are so many things that happen, but we're not responding to each other in ordinary ways. And an integrated intensive can be, in a way, even more challenging, surprising to a lot of people, because we remain in the thick of it, even as we practice stepping beyond, but remaining rooted. We're not leaving our life. For example, in Madison at Holy Wisdom Monastery is such a beautiful place. We have our little rooms, we have our beautiful, and everything is great. There's a way in which we're contained, which can frustrate our desires to our own preferences. And then we get to see where we push. Because either way, we're asked to rest in the awareness that we're held in a profound way by the Sangha. And this is what's appropriate for adults, rather than being taken care of as a child. We're cared for in a clear and potent way by the schedule and by the forms. And that's why I said during an integrated intensive, it's probably more useful to have more forms, not less, so that we can be held. We're cared for in a clear and potent way by the schedule and by the forms. We're held imperfectly, but in a very dedicated way by our teachers and our spiritual friends, which inevitably will fail us at times, and yet we keep coming back and repairing and working through what comes forward. But within that container, all of our personal preferences are gently removed, frustrated, and revealed. All the ways that we wish the world would be. And we're back to that question of, this is not what I expected. How am I going to solve my life? It can't be this. And we come back to the entry. Yes, the willingness. I will. Yeah, yes. I will do this. Welcoming everything, pushing nothing away. This is in some ways the contract you make when you enter a retreat like this. You may not have realized this is what you're signing up for. When you sign up, you're basically contracting to surrender, which will sometimes feel like submitting, but it isn't. Surrender to the schedule, to the shared work necessary to sustain the retreat, to the practices, to the teachings. You're making the contract that says, I will welcome everything, I'll push away nothing. It's just like in the ceremony that Kathy enacted in the beginning. Will you do this? I can't. Will you do this? I'm not ready. Please do this. I don't know. And then finally, okay. What makes an intensive, integrated or ordinary residential, what makes an intensive intense is the setting down of our preferences. You will invariably be tired, in pain, frustrated, confused, triggered by other people, by the technology, any number of interesting and annoying reactions. But it is sort of your checking your preferences at the door or the screen these days that's most intense. The contract that says, in essence, by walking through these doors or clicking on this screen, we're sitting down and saying that, yes, for now, this. Because this is what you're going to have to do in your life anyway. I've said before, you've heard me say this, most of you, people ask, okay, in the end, if I practice diligently, if I wake up, if I help others, what's the result? Where do I end up? And I said, well, essentially, you end up saying, okay, I'll live my life. I'll choose the life I have. And then live it fully with as much robust potential as I can offer, with as much care as I can offer. I'll live my life. I'll choose it. And if you're fortunate, and many of you in your private emails and inquiry and otherwise are telling me that you are grateful, some of these places where you have clung to in order to maintain your self, the self-centered dream self, have begun to slowly soften and drop away. And what's revealed, you've told me, is a freedom you never thought possible. A liberation from the tyranny of the small personhood. And as you sit and as you serve others, you choose your life and settle into the life that already is. And you can find freedom in the midst of a life that you wouldn't have chosen if you were given a way to design it. We wouldn't have chosen to be in this pandemic, but here we are. And when asked to follow the schedule and to show up when it's time and to do the chants, to sit upright, when you might hear the request as, now follow the schedule and the forms because I told you so. Very parental attitude. But I hope that more and more you'll hear it from me and from all the other practice leaders and all the other sanghas. Please follow the schedule and the forms so you can begin to feel what it's like to be in accord with everyone else, to care for others and to be cared for, and to experiment with dropping the habitual tyranny of self-concern and self-preoccupation. Because this is compassion. The deepest kind. But the key, of course, is where is this request coming from? Who's saying it? Who's receiving it? Like I said, it can be that parental kind of attitude in its offering, or it can be felt as a child. It can get complicated, and you need a trustworthy sangha and trustworthy teachers and friends you can rely on who will pull the rug out in these gentle, loving ways and immediately be there with a warm, outstretched hand to help you up. And at some point you don't fall. And you find yourself offering your own outstretched hand to others as they stumble. So that you say, like Trudy did at the end of her poem and at the end of her essay, thank you for supporting me to fail or to fall. Maybe this is enough for today. I will also send to you a kind of a summary. I've sent it to some of the folks who are going to be in the practice discussion groups, which speaks to the sort of a summary of a practice in a way, what it means to sit, what it means to face suffering, where we go with it. And I'll send that summary to you. And maybe it's a way to reflect on some of the things I've said today. Because once again, we're speaking about the middle way. How do I practice diligently and open to the freedom and spaciousness that I can touch through practice, and have that spaciousness and freedom support me in meeting more of my everyday life. The more I can meet my everyday life, the more I can sit upright and still in the midst of it, so I can open to my nature. The more my true nature is revealed, the more we realize it and can express it and live it, the more we can meet what's there. That's actually wisdom and compassion working together. And it's the embodiment and the life of the middle way. So what I think I'd like to do is invite Suzanne to come along with me a bit here and ask her to make some comments, not just on today, of course, but the week thus far, the retreat thus far. And I'll stay here. We might have a little conversation at some point, but I'd like to listen to her for a bit. And we'll see how our time goes. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hello, Flint. It's so good to be with you this afternoon and finish up our time here and take what we have cultivated, generated, uncovered out into our life every day as we go. I'm so glad that you asked me to comment because I didn't know this when I was taking some notes about last night or on last night's inquiry. And so when you asked this of me, I went, oh, good, I'm going to get to say these things, at least some of them. But first of all,
can I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I want people to understand that had we had the entrustment ceremony for Suzanne, we would have enacted even a larger ceremony of willingness, commitment, perseverance, practice. And she would have been asked to respond to questions and give some expression of the Dharma. So this is a way for her to do a little practice quickly and without much preparation in a way. But it's also part of what it means to begin to take your seat, which is already the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to underscore that for the not just the Open Door Zen community, because they get that, but all the others also. So please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Well, when we chose this theme of welcome everything, push away nothing, it really was stimulated by the articles that you sent us for support and reflection during the retreat. While both articles had the phrase end of the world as part of the title,
we decided not to use that.
we didn't think that would be a very encouraging title for this gathering. But out of our discussion came this theme, welcome everything, push away nothing. And as we've gone on through the weekend, I realized that that's really been a larger container for the articles and for everything that has happened here. That theme, welcome everything, push away nothing, I would add something to it at this point. And that is, welcome everything, push away nothing all in service of identifying an appropriate response.
Mhm. Exactly.
This came clear to me in last evening's inquiry, which is always for me another form of Dharma talk.
Mhm.
Everyone asked such beautiful questions or made beautiful comments that elicited beautiful teachings. And many of them came from the people themselves, at least in part. And of course, you offered your reflections, but in the way that you bring the teachings out in us, so that it's not something that, oh, I have to go to Flint to get. We recognize it is here, in within, and it's grounded in our basic goodness.
That's my hope.
Yeah. But so what the notes I made last night was what I understood people said. So from beginning with Monica, realizing that what she was asking, her answer was in her art. Ruth in her longing to sing, and in singing no matter what, or whatever, no matter what.
Mm. Mm.
Daniela in listening to herself and taking the action that renewed her spirit, even though she had some doubts about it, and brought them, which was so wonderful, so that that whole thing could be just completely opened up. And Erin's intimacy in the midst of the agitation she experienced in order to be with her daughter while their horse died. That just touched my heart so deeply.
Mhm.
Steve in his offering, how healing and intimate looking into someone's eyes as he cares for them.
Mm.
Even though he can't touch them, like the caregivers can't touch. His son, John, in voicing that what many of us experience in practice when things are transitioning. Chris in naming the preciousness of being present. And Kim in honoring the broken bucket as a reflection of our own experience and how holy it is. I hope I didn't miss anybody. But it was such a treasure that I didn't have any sense of time last night.
Mhm.
It
Same
was,
with me.
it was timeless, yeah. This all reminded me of a quote of something I've heard David White, the poet, say, beautiful questions create beautiful minds.
Mhm.
Mhm. So I want to thank everybody who's been here this weekend. I know it wasn't always easy and may not have been doable for some as time went on. We learned a good deal about how to do a gathering like this. But most of all, for me, I learned the Dharma can be infused in everything and is everywhere. I only need look and see and sense and welcome it. So my great thanks goes to our retreat committee. We've been working for weeks, meeting on Zoom every week on Monday mornings, countless emails and that sort of thing, but I want to name everybody. Catherine Coleman, Chris Eckerman, Bonnie Schmidt, Kathy Spann, Eileen Kelfer, who's had a huge learning curve of technology, and she's been wonderful. Julie Lohr, a wonderful design person, and Mary Grace Ott. They were the prime examples of the paramitas. Generous, they were ethical beacons, patient, commitment, joyful energy, and wisdom.
You're chanting the names of the ancestors, the ones now.
Yes, yes. And especially Jessica in Austin at Apamata. She's been wonderful and a great help with all the technology for us. So in terms of, usually at the end of our retreats, I say something about, please everybody take home what you brought here so we don't have to, take it with you, or at least if you're going to leave something that we're going to like. But I don't have to say anything about that. What I do want to say is I hope what people take from here is the container of care and love and freedom that we hope has been cultivated here. So the last thing is just an announcement about Open Door in general, we meet 2 times a week for meditation, on Sunday evenings and on Wednesday evenings at 5:45. I send out a weekly email with the link for those. And if people want to be on that list, if they're not on our mailing list, they can email us at opendoorzenscommunity@gmail.com. And they can get on our list. And we try not to send a lot of emails. This weekend was different, but I do send out a weekly email with that information. All right, thanks so much.
Can I say a few more things? We have a little more time, right? First, I want to just underscore that the way in which you could see and notice and then reflect the teachings that came through each person is part of what makes you a teacher. That you weren't noticing simply what you were getting from it. You were noticing how the Dharma was moving through each person. Then you can support it and encourage it. And that's the turn. That's very, very important. So I wanted to just underscore that that's what you're looking for. And it's natural for you. It's not something you're doing. You weren't even doing it for this. You were just utilizing. So I appreciate that very much. Your willingness to do that. I was also wondering if, given that we have a little time, if anybody has any last minute comments or questions that they'd like to make. And I could ask Jessica, is there a way for us to manage that today? I think we're still on the webinar format.
Yes, people could just raise their hand and we could promote them to a panelist to ask their question, or they can chat the question.
Right. And Suzanne and I both can stay here. And if anybody has a question or something they'd like to do to complete. Is there any more that you were going to do online, Suzanne?
No.
Or is this the last time? Okay,
This
good.
is the last time.
But you know, in a circle at the end of a retreat, often people will speak to what they received or what they like, and it's a way of helping us feel complete as a circle. So I just wanted to make sure if people wanted to ask anything or make any comments, we'll spend a little time doing that. So let's just make a little space. We'll wait and see. It's no requirement, but.
Are you seeing this, Flint?
Yeah, I see the chat, but
Okay.
I think we might also have them come forward. Let's see.
Okay. Gwen?
Did you want to respond?
No, go ahead, Flint, that first part of the question, but then I'll respond to a second piece.
Okay, hey, just hang on, Steve. We'll just hang that there.
Okay.
No problem.
All right.
Someone was asking how to connect with the Zen community when you live in a rural area. Now that I can use online anywhere, but not sure how to try out what's an hour away. Well, luckily we can connect just like we are right now, from Hawaii to Madison to Davenport to Austin. All these people are online at the moment, so that's useful. But not sure how to, quote, try out what's an hour away. I assume that Gwen, you might be thinking about an idea of a place that you want to try out. Call, see what that they have available and check it out. One of the things that's really important is that you take your time in finding the teacher and the community which seems to be right. Don't go quickly, but try a lot of different places and things to see how it's what you're learning from them. So if you have other questions, certainly get in touch with the practice leaders there in Madison, and they'll help you out with this. Hey, Steve.
Can I just?
What, do you want to say something else, Suzanne? Yeah.
One other thing is to let Gwen know that we have a lot of people on our online meditations from around the country. And they're so grateful to be able to come in. They've attended retreats.
Sure.
here. They've traveled here, but to be able to do this online. So, Gwen, if you're don't be concerned that you might be the only one.
Oh
If you
yeah,
want
and
to
Appamada,
come
same way in Austin.
here.
There's multiple opportunities.
Mhm. Okay, Steve.
Okay, Steve.
Hi.
Hi.
This speaks to exactly what I was going to say. I sometimes I feel I live in Davenport, Iowa, and there's not a Zen community right here. And I practice with a teacher in Iowa City that's an hour away. And then I love all the people in the Open Door Zen community, and they're 3 hours away. And I also practice at Rumanji Zen Center in Northeast Iowa. But I don't think I'll ever feel that aloneness after this weekend.
Ah,
It's just been wonderful. And if we're connected, like I can see Suzanne's face right now. When I'm sitting, I was just thinking about where everybody was: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, California, Hawaii, on and on. And I'm here alone, but I'm not. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you for all your hard work.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome, Steve.
well, and the integrated nature of this intensive really did integrate something,
Absolutely.
stitch
Yeah.
something together.
Yep.
In the
You
midst- in the midst of
really
separation.
created a Zendo here,
Yeah. And in the midst of separation, we have connection. They're the two
Exactly.
truths right there.
Yep. So
Thanks,
thank
Steve.
you. You bet.
I think there may be someone else coming on, but I wanted to say also, Suzanne, how much I appreciate your willingness to continue to encourage my connection and teaching, even when it would be easy to not do it because I couldn't come. It's such a great opportunity for me, and I feel so connected. I just miss being where I can sit in the same room with you, like we all do. But I've been very nourished by this, and I hope my teachings have been in service of it. But Kathy,
You're very welcome, Flint. When we realized our physical one couldn't happen, I could speak for myself, but I remember people saying that the thought of it just broke our hearts.
yeah, that's the way I felt, broken. And I know from the UK, I'm going to offer the same retreat in 2 weeks there, where I would have flown from Chicago on to England.
Yes.
They said, we're terrified that this is what will help you decide not to come anymore. So don't worry about that. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's Kathy.
Well, good morning, everyone. And just a couple of things. One, I want to thank everybody for their support. I've really felt it, and it's been wonderful. The other thing is, I just want to make explicit that, Suzanne, when you mentioned the Sunday and Monday and Wednesday night sits, that those are online. Those are through a Zoom link or through your telephone. So anybody can join those. And finally, I wanted to let people know that I really look forward to, at this point, some virtual teas with people as the head student, and maybe eventually a real tea, and maybe a walk around that labyrinth that I mentioned that's so close to my home. I would really love to meet people to do that together, but we'll see how that goes. Already I've had a couple emails and 2 FaceTime sessions. Flint, I wanted to let you know that Ruth and I had a wonderful time singing together this morning.
I hope so.
Yeah, we did. And so lots of things are possible. So I'll probably be sending out an email through Open Door, but please feel free to contact me. Feel free to email me if that's something, if you'd like to have some connection at this
And
point.
I hope we might not have made that very explicit, because sometimes we take it as a given, but one of the functions of the head student is that they, as a friend to the community, they meet with students and have tea, like she was saying, and visit and get to know them. And now that you can't do that in an ordinary way, you can do it virtually, as Kathy was saying. Or if you feel like it's appropriate, you can have a walk with your masks a few feet apart. Who knows? We can figure out what you want to do. But
Right. So at this point, I think it could be through email or through something like FaceTime or over the phone.
yeah, great.
I look
Thanks
forward
for that
to it.
reminder.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a really wonderful experience. So much more than I expected, honestly. It's wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Eileen and Jessica, for the technical support.
Mhm. I really like the way that some of the transitions take time,
Mhm.
so we can just rest for a little bit. Things happen so. Okay, so I think we're at the end of our time. Is that true?
Mhm.
Okay.
Could we bring Kim back on?
There she is.
Yes, great.
Hi.
Hi. Is it possible? I'm not just asking Kim this. Is it possible for those of us who have our microphones unmuted to chant something together, or does it make it all crazy?
Oh, no.
If you don't have speaker view on,
It makes it all crazy.
that's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was concerned about that. What I was hoping to do is to have us do the meta practice that we do.
Mhm.
So if the sound makes it all crazy, then I can lead it, and all of you could do call and response. You can mute yourself, but we could do the actions together. Would that be okay? Okay. So many of you have done this before, but those of you that haven't, I'll say it, then you just say it back. I'll give you a moment, and so I can see you saying it back to me. Those of you that are online, so I'll know that you're hearing it. So we start like this gesture. May this body be at ease. May this heart be open. May this mind be boundless. May this being awaken. Now open your hands to others. And Jessica and Eileen, are you there too? Why don't you come on? Just as an expression of this opening. We'll see them. Unless you're in your pajamas or something, you don't want to be seen. Are you there, Jessica? See, there you go. Just so you can mute your microphone, but let's just open our hands to each other. And then looking in the faces, may your body be at ease. May your heart be open. May your mind be boundless. May you awaken. Now the third one, what we would normally do is we would hold hands in the circle, So hold your hand, whatever way you like. May our bodies be at ease. May our hearts be open. May our minds be boundless. May we awaken together. And then as we do when we extend the merit to everyone, we'll raise our hands as if we're offering it to the whole world, which is what we're doing. May all bodies be at ease. May all hearts be open. May all minds be boundless. May all beings awaken together. Thank you for your practice.